cut across to breaking news coming in. An official from the Chinese Center of Disease Control on Friday has said that health authorities were actively seeking approval by the World Health Organization for a series of Chinese-made vaccines. Last week, the WHO gave emergency use authorizations to China's Sinopharm, a first for a Chinese vaccine. We also have a reaction coming in on this from Xiao Yiming. Let's listen in. Right, so these are the details we've been able to pick up until now. This is the official from the Chinese Center for Disease Control who on Friday had said that health authorities were actively seeking approval by the World Health Organization for a series of Chinese-made vaccines, and last week the WHO had given emergency use authorizations to China's Sinopharm, a first for a Chinese vaccine. I want to cut across to Niranjan, who's joining us live on the broadcast. Niranjan, China is anyway in the dock when it comes to several nations demanding a probe to the origin of the pandemic and the virus, and now China pushing for its vaccines to get an approval from the WHO.
Well, that's correct, and you know, if you look at China, it's been aggressively sort of pushing the World Health Organization. And you just heard an official from China's Center for Disease Control saying that health authorities were actively seeking approval by the WHO for a series of Chinese-made vaccines, so aggressively pushing more and more Chinese vaccines into the market. And last week, the WHO also gave emergency use authorization to China's Sinopharm, first for a Chinese vaccine. Xiao Yiming, a researcher for China's Center for Disease Control and Prevention, has said today that a series of vaccines are in the process of applying for approval, and that they're actively pushing forward this agenda with the World Health Organization. As of now, it is unclear how much data has been made available for regulators to also evaluate the efficacy and safety for these other Chinese vaccines. Now, for Sinopharm, the Chinese manufacturer has released very little public data about its two vaccines aside from efficacy numbers. And WHO's decision on Sinopharm, months in the making, was particularly complex because the vaccine has not faced the high-level scrutiny of a rigorous medicines regulator like those in Europe and America. However, the decision by the World Health Organization Technical Advisory Group opens up the possibility that Sinopharm's offering could also be included in the UN-backed COVAX program in the coming weeks or months. And Chinese health officials are also saying this evening that China has identified imported COVID variants from UK, South Africa, Brazil, and India, and said that it would strengthen controls on passenger travel from some countries.
All right, Niranjan, stay on with us. Let me also bring in Ankit Prasad from the digital desk, joining us from the Mumbai newsroom. Ankit, what are the details you're picking up on this, and anything from the WHO on this front?
I'll tell you, Suesha, what we found out just now is China is seeking perhaps approval for more vaccines. This comes just days after Sinopharm's vaccine itself was authorized by the WHO. It's been less than a week since that happened. The vaccine, that is Sinopharm, has been administered to places and to people in different countries for a while before that, even before its conclusive studies were out, even before the WHO had given its own nod for it. One such country where the Sinopharm vaccine has been used quite a bit is Seychelles, and Seychelles has reported a lot of trouble with people relapsing into COVID despite having taken vaccinations. Now, I have the story about, we had actually broken it first when the WHO had given its approval to Sinopharm. In fact, we have a catalog of stories on Republic World right now that talk about how there were question marks still pending about Sinopharm's vaccine, primarily because public data hasn't been made available about the phase 3 clinical trials. Eventually, when the trial data was published, it claimed an efficacy of 79%. So there are a lot of things on republicworld.com right now that tell you about China's vaccine diplomacy. This is a term that is being used as China seeks to send almost 500 million doses of its vaccine to an estimated 50 countries. The full list of countries that China is sending its vaccines to is not available. That is a matter of contention. Also, something that we are following very closely, and I know people who are watching Republic know this, is that we are tracking a lot of these experts who almost a year after their first call was shut down, are talking about how lapses to do with the coronavirus origin and the way it was tackled when it first broke out, and even how it came to be, whether it came from bats or whether there was some kind of human intervention involved. These questions are being raised anew. And we've had two very important people who have made statements to this effect, an argument to this effect, on the channel and on Republic World just today. To Niranjan Narayan Swamy today, James Kraska had spoken, and he had spoken, like the headline says, most likely that COVID-19 did arise from one of Wuhan's institutes, he says. With Sanika Kanikar, here is the interview of Professor Lawrence Gostin, who said that the pandemic was amplified because China did not report it to the world on time. We have been writing about the WHO's initial mistakes when it came to reporting about COVID. There was an infamous tweet that the WHO had once put out where it had said that human-to-human transmission of COVID does not happen. It went on to delete it later and has been criticized for it and its slow response, and perhaps for being a little kinder than it should have been to China. So these are stories that we are following very, very closely on republicworld.com, just like we are on Republic TV. You can read about it entirely, about China's vaccines, as well as our pursuit of the truth for the coronavirus's origins. Back to you, Suesha.
Oh yes, Ankit, thank you for those details and all that you need to know on the Chinese vaccine and what China is doing in terms of their vaccines, trying to get approval from WHO. All the details there on republicworld.com.